And welcome. And we start off with a bracha, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And we are looking at Torah Temimah. And excuse me. And moving slowly through chapter 1 of Genesis, carefully analyzing little pieces of it. And here's where we are. Yehi Me'orot. This is verse 14, right? Vayomer Elohim Yehi Me'orot Birkia Hashamayim. Let there be luminaries in the Rakia, in the heavens, right? In the I guess I'm trying to think of how the firmament of the heavens, lehavdil bein hayom, to distinguish between the day uvein halayla, and between the night. V'hayu la'otot u'lamoadim, they shall be for signs and for appointed times, meaning the festivals, to determine them, u'leyamim v'shanim, and for days and for years, with these luminaries. So what you want to notice is that the way this is spelt in the Torah, it's pronounced ma'orot, and you know usually the o vowel, the o sound, is indicated by a vav, like yom, there it is, the o sound, indicated by an o. But here there is no vavs in here, even though it's pronounced ma'orot. And that leads to another word, ma'eret, something like that, which is got to do with cursing, and we're going to see how that plays itself out. We've had this example in previous examples, so here we go. Yehi Ma'orot, let there be luminaries. Tanya, it's taught in a text that is, or a source that is contemporaneous with the Mishnah, which would be precede the year 200. Anshe Mishmar. Again, literally, it means the men of the watch. We've explained who these men were before. Essentially, they would represent the communities around the land of Israel, because the temple was so centralized, and they would observe what was going on in the temple. They would observe the public offerings that were brought there every day. Excuse me. Hayu mitanim, they would fast b'chol yom, every day. We already know that it isn't every single day. They probably started with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, possibly. Here we go. So here we go. Okay, this is Wednesday, Baravi'i. On Wednesday, Hayu mitanin al hatinokot. They would fast on behalf of babies. Shelot ta'aleh askara letoch pihem. We had this before, that they should not suffer from croup. Al Shem Shinemar. So why Dafka on Wednesday would they do this? Because it says regarding the fourth day of the week, Vayomer Elohim Yehi Ma'orot, and it could be like Ma'eret, let there be luminaries, Ma'eret. So chaser means with it's lacking, meaning lacking the vavs. Ketiv, it's written without the vavs. And this is from the Talmud Yerushalmi. So let's take a look. He's going to say, obviously, that he referred to this before, but he's going to go a little bit further on this subject now. He's going to develop it a little further. Inyan drasha zu bichlal, and he says the general understanding of this interpretation, v'chein yachas kilalat askara leyom revi'i, and in general and likewise the connection of the curse of croup for Wednesday. Nitba'er lefanenu la'el. We've explained these connections earlier on, but pasuk vav, with regards to verse 4. Ot Lamed Zayin, and Lamed Zayin means sort of it's these letters here. In other words, the footnote 37. So earlier on, we could find his comments on this particular and other connections. Ye'uyan Sham, just go back there, take a look at it, v'tzaref lekan, and you can connect it to what's written here. Ve'iyen beYoredea, he says, but look further. Yoredea is one of the 4 books of the Shulchan Aruch, and Yoredea has to do with the more technical elements of Jewish law. The first book, Orech Chaim, has to do with basically the daily practices or the regular practices of a Jew and the laws regarding normal Jewish or regular Jewish practice. Yoredea goes into issues such as divorce and other kinds of business dealings, etc., that require a certain other level of expertise. So this may well have to do, we'll see, in Yoredea, Siman Kuf Ayin Tet, this would be chapter 179. Seif Bet, those chapters are into subsections, divided into subsections. So he's saying, I believe he's saying here that it's section 2, if we were to look up Yoredea. Shenahagu, there was a custom, Shelo lahatchil bebeit v'daled, that they would not begin a journey or some business transaction, a new business transaction, or other kinds of things on this would be Monday and on Wednesday. They would not do that. Uketav Hataz, the Taz stands for Turei Zahav, and it's a major commentator on the Shulchan Aruch. And it's basically, if you look at a page of a Shulchan Aruch, you'll see that as in here, it has the Shulchan Aruch itself in the center, and then it has other major commentaries around the side of it. And the Taz is one of those commentaries. He says, I'm going to quote. Hatam, the reason for this, hu mipnei she'akochavim I have to look at this, I'm sorry, hatzmachim, okay, he says the reason is that the stars, and this is plants, smachim, or tzomchim, bahem, okay, so he's saying, and things that grow from underneath these particular stars, bahem, heim kashim, they are hard. Whatever he means by that, does he mean they experience difficulty? And when he says hatzomchim bahem, I think he is talking about plant, vegetation, things like that. All right, and that's end of quote. Ad kan l'shono. V'kama kashet tamazeh, and the our author, okay, Baruch Halevi Epstein says this is hard to understand. This reasoning. Why does he give this reason? Why does the Tav give this as the reason? V'yoter nachon, and it would have been better to say lahasmich al hadrashal shelefanenu. Why didn't he just base it on this interpretation that we just read? Dichtiv, because it says specifically Berevi'i ma'eret, right? That the word ma'orot, he says, there's that the word ma'orot on Wednesday, chaser, it's lacking the vav, chaser vav, shehu lashon me'era uklala, which would give a meaning of curse, right? Something cursed. V'chein b'sheni, and why not on Monday? B'pnei shelo nemar bo ki tov, because on the second day, on Yom Sheni, it doesn't mention ki tov. It doesn't mention how good it was on at all. Kamo b'shar hayamim, as it does on the other days, every other day, except for Monday, the second day, it mentions God saw how good it was. As has been explained already when we commented on verse 8. Uve Zohar, and in the Zohar, Parshat Akev, where it's on the Parsha of Akev, right, in Deuteronomy, Reish Ayin Gimel, I believe that's a pagination, Aleph, that it's page 273a. Katav, there it writes in the Zohar, Ein matchilin bebeit, that you don't start something on Monday, ve'ein misaimim bedaled, nor do you complete something on Wednesday. Ve'lo eda, and now this is Baruch Halevi Epstein saying, Ve'lo eda, and I do not know, Yesod, the basis, or makor, or the origin, l'lashon zeh. What's the source of saying such a thing? Ve'ulai, and it's possible. So he's contemplating what the source might be. What's the basis of this? Mefaresh ma'azmar chazal, that he's explaining a statement, a saying of our sages, and this is the saying: Le'olam yetze adam bekitov, that a person should always begin something. He should go out on kitov, on a day where it says kitov, is how that's understood. The yikanes bekitov, and likewise he should enter when the day is a kitov, that mentions kitov. Sheyetze v'yikanes bayamim, in other words, that he should go out and come in on days shene'emar bahem kitov, where it states kitov. V'hainu levad yom sheni, right? And this refers only to the second day, in other words, Monday. V'gam lo berevi'i, right? And the reason why we would say, even though it says kitov on Yom Revi'i, on Wednesday, but it says shenemar bo me'eret, right? And me'orot without the vav. It's got this element of cursing with it. So it's not, even though it says kitov literally on the page, and nevertheless, it's not a kitov because of this me'orot spelt this way. Umefaresh yetze, and we can understand yetze to go out. Hatchala, right? That is the beginning. Uknisa, and coming in, siyum, ending something. In other words, we can understand beginning and ending. So here he is trying to explain the Zohar passage. Vahu adin, and all the more so, she'ein matchilin bedaled, that you don't begin something on Wednesday, umisaimin bebet, you shouldn't be completing it on Monday, right? With the same reasons, aval zeh tzarich iyon. But the fact is that as nice and as compelling, if you want to say that, right, or convincing this explanation is, he admits himself, tzarich iyun. This is not, it can't just be accepted so simply. Why? The mahamar yetze v'yikanes bekitov, that when it's talking about a person should leave and depart when it says kitov, and come in when it says kitov, musav le'inyan acher, it actually is talking, that verse is actually applying to a whole different situation, and that is latzeit v'likanes pe'od yom, that a person should depart on a journey. It's talking about a journey, basically, that he should depart when be'od yom, while it's still daylight. That's what it means. Okay, so it's not really talking about what he was talking about. When you actually look at the context of this statement, it's in a different context. Kefi sheyitba'er lefanenu, as will be clarified before us, sof parshat Miketz, at the end of the parsha of Miketz. Omnam, however, bichlal, in general, ein lachakor harbe achar zeh, it's not worth investigating this too much. Dichtiv, because it says elsewhere, tamim tieh im Hashem Elokecha. You should act in a simple way. Don't complicate your lives. Just don't try and look for little excuses and things like that before God. Try to act openly and simply before God. Ukafi sheyitba'er, and as will be explained, lefanenu, ahead, sham, in that place, he's talking about in Parshat Miketz, im yirtzeh Hashem, God willing, the good Lord willing, ve'efshar lahamlitz, and it's possible, lahamlitz al zeh lashon, that it's possible to give a metaphoric is not quite the right term, as you will see in a moment, al zeh lashon, on a verse that's hapasuk, on the words of the verse, cherev al habadim, right, that there is a sword on the cloths and linen, right? There's it's mentioned in tractate brachot, whatever that means in that context, okay? But when it says a sword on habadim, what it's saying is Bet would be Monday and Daled would be Wednesday, and saying that there is a sword on Monday and Wednesday, and understanding that, again, that would be metaphoric, that those are days that there is a sort of metaphoric sword on them. V'gam yesh samach ra'aya, okay, and there is something to lean on here as far as this being a proof. Shahagamara lo chashasha, right? Well, I think, okay, let's see, that the Gemara did not have a problem. L'chol inyan hatchala badalid. So interesting what he's saying here and how this refers to what we're talking about. Okay, so he's saying, that's what it's saying, that the Gemara didn't have any problem at all starting something on Wednesday. Now, if in fact I'm understanding what he's saying here, there's a lot of give and take going on here, and this is really complex, certainly for me, but I'm doing the best I can trying to understand. But samach is basically, he's saying, is there something to rely on? Okay, so he says that is he saying that this statement that he's been talking about, this explanation that he's been talking about, that it really has nothing to do, that when it says you should start be'od yom be'kitov and end be'kitov, has more to do with being able to make sure that you begin and end things like a journey during the daytime, okay, and nothing to do with curses and things like that, okay? So, because he says that the Gemara has no problem hatchala b'dalet, starting something on Wednesdays. Sharei amrinan amri, it looks like, or amru, sorry, amru meforash b'ktuvot. They state explicitly in Tractate Ketuvot on page 5a, betula nis'et berevi'i. It says that you betroth a virgin on Wednesday. And betrothal, obviously, is the beginning of something. Sorry. And this was hard for me to read because the print here is not clear, but it has to be a vav, and it looks like a yud. That's why I was having difficulty reading this. Okay. But it says, married, okay. Gam levad, hatam shebi mishnah sham. Apart from the reason given there, Ye'uyan Sham, check out Ketubot there, Ve'ein Laharich, and he says, and I don't want to go into this any further. So I made a note about the reason why. Here we go. A virgin is married on Wednesday and a widow on Thursday. This is the statement in the Mishnah. The reason for the former is that twice a week courts convene in the towns on Monday and Thursday. Interesting, right? So does that mean the cherev, that by sword he means that he's talking about the Bet Din meeting on Monday and Thursday and understanding courts, as it were, being a sword? At any rate, that's when they used to meet in the market towns, so that if the husband had a claim concerning the bride's virginity when consummating the marriage on Wednesday night, he could go early the next day to court and make the claim. Of course, this is not something that sits easily with us nowadays, but at any rate, it is what was going on at a certain point in our history. And that's any comments on this? And I understand if you have some comments you want to make or any clarifications. Okay, let's go on a little bit then. So le'otot u'lemoadim, for signs and for festivals, appointed seasons. Amar Rabbi Shila b'shem Rabbi. So Rabbi Shila said in the name of Rabbi. We've actually had this statement before, but it's a different context. So Rabbi Shila said in the name of Rabbi. When it's just Rabbi, the Rabbi, it's Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, who was the editor who arranged for the editing of the Mishnah. Ketiv, it states Tehillim Kuf Dalet in Psalm 104, Asa yareach lamoadim. He made the moons to mark the seasons, the moadim, the festivals. Going on, Shemesh yada mavo'or. He knows, or the setting of the sun, right? Or the sun knows its setting. This is not easy to translate. So who the yada is referring to? Is it referring to the to Hashem, to God, or is it referring to the sun knows what time to set? But I think it could also obviously be that God knows exactly when the sun sets. So Mishemesh, so this is how Rabbi originally explained. Mishemesh, from the sun, Yada Mavo'o, he recognizes the time of its setting. Asayareach Lamoadim, and on the basis of the sunset, he made the moon for the appointed seasons. Rabbi Simon Amar, and Rabbi Simon has a different basic for the same point, but from a different source. V'hayu la'otot u'lamoadim. So it says, and they shall be for signs and for the festivals. In other words, that the two, both the sun and the moon, are used for the festivals. Al yedei zeh v'al yedei zeh, meaning by means of them both. And this is, I can start, we have a little bit of time, and I can start the discussion of this. And we'll see what he says. This is what he says. Drashazo, he says, this interpretation, fula be'inyana, la'el, he says this is duplicated in this on this subject above, the pasuk hey, regarding verse 5, bedrasha, in the explanation, the interpretation of Vahi Erev, Vahi Voker, where it talks about there was evening and there was morning. Vesham nitba'ara gam drashazo. And in that explanation back there in verse 5, this particular interpretation is also explained. Uyan Sham, he says, check it out back there, Vitzaref Lakan, and you can apply it in this situation right here. So basically, what that drasha is talking about in the connection of the sun and the moon is that while we work, we have a lunar calendar essentially, right? Our calendar is based on the phases of the moon. So the new moon is the first day of the month, and festivals, if they occur on the 15th of the month, are occurring on the full moon. But the truth is that the moon does not do its revolution around the Earth in exactly 30 days. It's approximately 30 days. It's actually 29 and a half days. In other words, 29 days, 12 hours and some minutes, okay, and seconds. And so what happens is that when you get to the end of a month, you still have part of a day left. And it's in that case but days start at nightfall. We know that. So we calculate the lunar months based on by full days, and don't start a month in the middle of a day. And that, of course, has to do with the sunset, etc. He actually has, that is the Torah Temimah, has actually a very lovely and more detailed explanation of how this actually works. But essentially, if you figure out that we have those 2-day Rosh Chodeshes as the end of one month and the beginning of another month. But lunar months are never less than 29 or 30 days when you average out according to the sunset. But that's really the point that's being made here. And with this, I will stop for today. See what I can do here. There we are. It's a very thin line, I must say. So, there we are. And we'll stop the share. And we can stop the recording too.